In a speech that left audiences scratching their heads and heading for the exits, former President Donald Trump took to the stage in North Carolina with his signature bravado but quickly derailed, leaving his supporters frustrated and confused. Within the first 5 minutes, attendees began to walk out, clearly disillusioned by a performance marred by location blunders, factual slip-ups, and a rambling, incoherent flow. In what was supposed to be a rallying call for his loyal base, Trump ended up stumbling over key details, mixing up states and candidates, and even alienating fellow Republicans with scathing remarks. In this video, we'll dissect Trump's North Carolina speech, examining the missteps that left audiences disengaged. From his misplaced praise of a Pennsylvania candidate to his attacks on Mitch McConnell and his puzzling struggle to articulate basic sports terminology, this speech provides a vivid example of a leader whose message seems increasingly unhinged. We'll explore Trump's attacks on the GOP establishment, his attempts to deflect accountability by demonizing Democrats, and the responses from both his supporters and critics. For those questioning Trump's mental clarity and strategic direction as he embarks on another potential presidential bid, this speech might offer further evidence of a politician whose rhetoric is losing touch with reality. Let's delve into how Trump's North Carolina appearance became a surreal display of missteps, political rants, and dwindling audience engagement. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to reaching 5,000 subscribers, but we can't do it without you. So, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe right now. And if you're already subscribed, give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment to let me know your thoughts. Alright, let's dive right into it. 1. A blunder from the start, confusing North Carolina with Pennsylvania. Barely into his North Carolina address, Trump showed a startling disconnect with the location and audience. Praising one of the best candidates in the state, he called out for David McCormick, assuming the Pennsylvania Senate candidate was present. To the dismay of attendees, McCormick was neither in the building nor a candidate for North Carolina's race. Trump's error in mixing up states left onlookers confused, and many began heading for the exits soon after this early mistake. Trump's blunder underscores a frequent critique, his increasingly erratic memory and apparent disorientation. Trump's mistake regarding McCormick was particularly glaring because he had just arrived in North Carolina after a prior engagement in Pennsylvania. This misstep painted a picture of a leader perhaps unable to keep track of his own campaign events. Many wondered whether this was simply an oversight or indicative of deeper cognitive issues. Whatever the reason, the incident fueled criticism of Trump's mental acuity and focus as he attempts to retain his influence over the GOP base. 2. Attacking Mitch McConnell, a war on his own party. As Trump's speech continued, he turned his attention to his long-standing rival, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Trump blamed McConnell for supposedly enabling the Democrats, despite the Kentucky senator's consistent role in advancing a conservative agenda. Trump's attacks revealed an ironic twist. While railing against Democrats, he seemed intent on tearing down his own party's leadership. "Hopefully we get rid of Mitch McConnell pretty soon," he sneered, as if unaware that McConnell's support was instrumental during Trump's presidency. McConnell has faced his own controversies and criticism from Trump supporters who see him as part of the so-called establishment. However, attacking fellow Republicans has not always served Trump well, as it risks alienating GOP loyalists who still hold McConnell in high regard. This segment of the speech epitomized Trump's increasing tendency to vilify not just Democrats, but also Republicans who failed to meet his demands. These divisive statements left many North Carolina attendees disillusioned, wondering whether Trump's focus on grievances was detracting from any constructive vision for America's future. 3. Sports confusion, struggling to find the goal line. Among the more bizarre moments in Trump's speech was his struggle to articulate basic sports terminology, highlighting a recurring theme in his public appearances, an apparent disconnect from common expressions. Trying to energize his audience with a metaphor about crossing the goal line, Trump fumbled and referred to it as the 4-yard line and then the 5-yard line before ultimately abandoning the analogy. His fumbling delivery on this simple sports reference left his audience bewildered, highlighting once again his unusual difficulty with straightforward language. This moment underscored concerns about Trump's ability to communicate effectively and raised questions about his mental sharpness. For some supporters, these slips are dismissed as harmless quirks, but for others, they symbolize a deeper issue in Trump's current ability to lead. The crowd's tepid response suggested that Trump's struggles with language and coherence may be eroding the enthusiasm of even his most dedicated followers. 4. Lashing out at the press. Trump's lawsuit against CBS and 60 Minutes. Shifting gears, Trump boasted about a lawsuit he filed against CBS and the television program 60 Minutes, apparently in retaliation for their perceived negative portrayal of him. This moment drew limited applause, as audience members seemed largely indifferent to Trump's ongoing legal grievances. By contrast, Vice President Kamala Harris had recently appeared on the same program, willingly engaging in the type of press exposure Trump claims to avoid due to media bias. This comparison highlighted a widening gap in transparency between Trump and other political figures. Trump's fixation on the media has long been a staple of his speeches, but for many in the crowd, this segment felt stale and repetitive. Even for Trump's most ardent fans, his constant complaints about fake news and the dishonest media may be wearing thin. Rather than building momentum, Trump's obsession with press coverage left attendees disengaged, with some expressing frustration at the lack of substantive content in his speech. 5. Misplaced nostalgia. Praising Hugo Chávez's Venezuela. Perhaps the most baffling segment of Trump's North Carolina speech was his nostalgic praise for Venezuela under the rule of Hugo Chávez. 18 years ago, Venezuela was a thriving country, Trump claimed, suggesting that the United States could face a similar decline. However, Chávez's legacy is controversial, marked by economic mismanagement, corruption, and authoritarian rule. For many in the audience, Trump's comment seemed out of touch, considering Venezuela's long-standing struggles under Chávez and his successor, Nicolas Maduro. Trump's reference to Venezuela seemed to confuse his audience, as many struggled to see how it related to his campaign or vision for America. His praise for a regime widely viewed as a symbol of failed governance left many scratching their heads, wondering if Trump was even aware of Chávez's controversial legacy. This segment reinforced doubts about Trump's messaging and highlighted a recurring theme in his speeches, a tendency to rely on loosely connected anecdotes rather than a coherent narrative. 6. The audience's reaction. A crowd growing increasingly restless. Throughout the speech, Trump's supporters appeared visibly uncomfortable, with many looking confused or even frustrated. At several points, onlookers were seen glancing around as if to say, "What is going on here?" Others began to leave early, perhaps disheartened by the disjointed nature of the speech. Trump's meandering commentary and fixation on grievances seemed to wear on even the most dedicated members of his base, suggesting a growing fatigue with his erratic delivery and lack of clear messaging. Trump's tendency to ramble, his fixation on personal grudges, and his frequent missteps have created a disconnect with audiences who may once have been his staunchest allies. As the crowd thinned, it became clear that Trump's ability to energize his base may be waning. While some still view him as a fighter willing to take on the establishment, others appear increasingly weary of his rhetorical missteps and obsession with past grievances. Trump's North Carolina speech was a striking display of a political figure seemingly losing his grip on both his message and his audience. His failure to engage attendees, combined with his frequent errors, confusing praise for foreign leaders, and fixation on personal feuds, underscored a concerning trend for his campaign. As he aims to recapture the White House, Trump's continued reliance on divisive rhetoric and his inability to deliver a coherent, forward-looking message may prove to be his undoing. For Trump's supporters and detractors alike, This North Carolina rally served as a revealing glimpse into a campaign struggling to find its footing. As Trump's missteps accumulate, even his most loyal base may begin to question whether his influence is sustainable. While he once captivated audiences with his brash style, his recent public appearances suggest a leader increasingly out of sync with the needs and concerns of American voters. With 2024 on the horizon, the question remains, can Trump regain the trust of his followers, or will his speeches continue to drive audiences out the door?